Welcome everybody to AFL Wit and Wisdom for season 2012. This is Peter Lynch coming to you, to your screens on YouTube. The NAB Cup Final, well, the NAB Cup Final it's the icing on the cake for the pre-season. I think that I know Adelaide won, and Adelaide performed very well, and of course the stamp of their new coach.
Geelong, Sanderson.
Brenton Sanderson. Brenton Sanderson is a very humble, very direct, very uncomplicated type of coach. He's got them very fit and he's got them working for each other. He's got a very potent forward line. And of course Undies Vince, on the Sunday previously, is got the infamous Undies situation where he was in the public eye for the remainder of the week, but he came out on the Saturday and he duly played up to the level that was required and ended up with a Michael Tuck medal. So they look like they're in for a good season. I mean, they're playing with a little bit more flair than what they had previously, and but we really do have to acknowledge the fact that the teams that finished out of the 8 last year did have that head start, and of course West Coast, they had about a month less preparation. Not that they would be using any excuses, because in reality everybody prepares their team and they're looking at game time into the players coming into the final practice matches, which is essentially what the NAB Cup's all about. But look, congratulations to Adelaide. They certainly did very, very well. It looks like they're in for a very good season, with Tippett now doing a little bit like jumping Jack Hawkins. He's actually embracing the game and he's taking it on, and he could be a major factor. And of course Dangerfield seems a lot stronger this year as well, and playing very, very well. So yeah, good luck to them. And but of course the jury's out, because Adelaide, as we know, when it gets to the business end of the season, they do have a few questions that still need to be asked, and they need to answer them in the affirmative, and that's to sort of win a couple of finals in the real season, and and then we'll say that we will acknowledge that they're a very good side, which on paper at the moment, they look to be heading in the right direction. Of course, Adelaide, they like coming up against the Magpies, because as we know, we've had the finals in 2002, preliminary final, when they came up against Collingwood, and they fell short, and came up against Collingwood again in 2009 over in Adelaide, and in a semi-final, and then I believe, I stand to be corrected there, 2009 it was the second final when Jack Anthony, Jumpin' Jack, got the free kick that was there. From a Collingwood point of view, it was definitely there, and took the kick after the game, and of course Collingwood went on to play Geelong in the preliminary final in 2009, but 2008 we go back, we actually played a final in Adelaide, and Collingwood again got the better of Adelaide. So I'm sure that Adelaide, if they happened to line up against the Collingwood side in the finals, they would be doing that with some form of trepidation. This week, of course, we've got standalone game. We've got the GWS and the Swans, and the Swans, of course, look, I think a lot of publicity around the GWS. They've contributed to the promotion very, very well. The Swans are very, very cooperative, but I think that ends on Saturday night when they cross the line. I think the Swans will be far too accomplished and far too strong for the Giants, and particularly with young Scully not being available. And I just look, the Swans around the ground, I think they'll, they're the ones, it's the first derby of the year, and they're the ones that want to stamp themselves as, they're the pioneers when all's said and done. They went up in 1982 from South Melbourne and became the Swans. They won their first premiership in 72 years in 2005. I beg to differ on that, 2005. And look, done an incredible job in a difficult market. So, yeah, on the score of form, on the score of desire, and the score of being the senior team in the Sydney AFL land, I think the Swans will be comfortable winners by 72 points. Yeah, Israel Folau, look, he got reported twice, and of course there's been quite a few comments far and wide, and particularly from a young tweeting friend, Mr. Selwood down at Geelong, who's got a few things to answer for. But look, I think he's just echoing the thoughts of most people at the time that hadn't really looked at the incidents because quite clearly, when it was shown last night on Fox Footy, it was clearly not much in it at all. He was just simply a very strong man who tackled somebody, and it looked a little bit at first sight, looked a little bit untoward, but no injury. I don't think he's got a case to answer for, and the league have got it right, and it's great to see the ex rugby league man lining up, and of course that'll certainly help to attract the crowd again. Very, very important. But I do credit the incident themselves, and common sense has prevailed. That the tribunal, or the people involved who actually review these cases, what do they call them? The match review tribunal. There we go. All these modern names these days. Gee whiz, like we didn't have those back in the old days. Thank goodness there's Ron Barassi and Teddy Whitten and all those fellas, but they got away with blue murder. But this is quite clearly just a storm in a teacup. Good on you, Izzy. I hope you do well. With Kevin Sheedy, of course, he's a legend of the game, and quite clearly similar to Ron Barassi. Ron Barassi went up to the Sydney Swans when they were in a spot of trouble. In fact, a lot of froth and bubble years ago, and he got them out. He set them up, set the tone, and of course, a young Rodney Eade came and took over and put the polish on them. But now, of course, with Kevin Sheedy's the master of using other people's skills, other coaches' skills. That and in this present time, he's using, of course, Choco Williams, and Choco appears to be taking all the hands-on training sessions, and is obviously doing a lot of work with the young players and obviously the assistant coaches. But he's a premiership coach, so why wouldn't you use someone like that? But Sheedy's ever the master of the media and organising the sponsors, and he's got people eating out of his hands. And already the scheduled first game, the standalone fixture this Saturday night, is looking like attracting somewhere in the vicinity of 48,000. And for the first game standalone for a new club, that's a fantastic achievement. So, the old man, the enduring Kevin Sheedy, has certainly been the ambassador that the AFL wanted in charge. But I'm sure that Choco Williams is putting a lot of his football stamp on the young guys, having only recently been involved with Port Adelaide, of course. Okay, Super Coach. Yes, the Super Coach is on again for the year, and of course, we've looking this week. One of the big movers in Super Coach is young Drew Petrie from North Melbourne, who came out and kicked a bag of 7 last week against Carlton at Busy Park. Yeah, and the advantage of Drew Petrie, of course, is that he's a man that can play at either end of the ground. He's also a man that can be thrown into the ruck. So, and that's what you're looking for in your Super Coach team. You're looking at players that are versatile, and I think Drew Petrie, young Travis Colley is another one that hasn't been spoken about much. He's a young chap from Essendon who's bulked up quite a bit this year. Did quite well in the midfield last year without setting the world on fire, but I think with that extra bulk that he'll be a mover. Undies Vince, of course, from Adelaide as an on-baller. You're picking him up for reasonable prices, around about the mid 400,000, 465,000. When you compare to Pendlebury and Ablett and Swan, who are up around the 700,000 mark, that's a pretty good buy for a man who averages over 20%. So what we've got now is we've just sort of talked about Undies Vince and Travis Collier. And we go to the back line. I mean, Heath Shaw is a perennial man who gets a lot of possessions. Brendan Goddard, of course, with the ability of both of those players that they do occasionally go forward. Brendan Goddard can play at either end of the ground and can go onto the ball. In the ruck, of course, we're talking Cox and Natanui. But I think this year, the way the trend's been in the pre-season, that Cox has gone forward, Natanui's played in the ruck. They've both stayed on the ground, which is an advantage. So as a combination, if you can afford them, that would be a very, very strong combination. But I've gone for young West from Cox as the number 1 ruckman, and West from Geelong, because I believe that West, within the absence of Ottens, is probably going to be playing a lot more time on the ground. He's going to have an influence, and if his form holds up, he'll be a big contributor. And the other one is Stevenson, who's a mature age player that's been picked up by Geelong. You can pick him up very, very cheaply, under $200,000 in the Super Coach team, and I just sit him on the bench. And of course the two Collingwood players again, we're looking at Segler or Witts. Between the pair of those, you're getting those for just a tick over $100,000, and I believe that are going to play some game time during the year with Cameron Woods recovering from his shoulder. Jolly, we hope that he has a sound year this year, but of course we don't know what's happening. They're both bargain basement ruckman that we know are going to be playing. Up forward, young Rioli. Of course, Rioli's Will o' the Wisp, and very, very talented, like his uncle Morris. And look, I just think that Cyril's in for a big year. He uses the ball so well and he's so damaging. I think the disappointment of last year's preliminary final will drive him. And so it's going to be interesting. But of course, the key to being successful in the Super Coach is your captain and vice captain. Let's not going in blind and looking at. We've got to look at the opposition that those players are coming up against within their team. So I've taken Vince as my captain. I think Adelaide come up against the Suns first round, and all due respect to the Suns, I think that Adelaide should go in as favourites. So having a captain who you know is going to be on a winning team, double your points, it's not a bad way to start the season. And so look, good luck to all those players out there. It's it's an interest for everybody because we don't just look at our own team, and it encourages us to look across the board at all the games that are happening, and with keen interest. So good luck to all the super coaches out in AFL land for 2012. Oh yes, the other news, the underlying news, and so it should be too, because it really is Carlton Footy Club, and here, us people here at Collingwood, we really, genuinely do believe that they're the enemy. Jordan Bannister. Well, what do we say? Here he is, an ex-Carlton player, and he's become an umpire. Well, they had the draft, and they got fined for breaching the salary cap, through the draft. They got all the concessions, and ironically, because they cheated, they still ended up with the magical, mercurial Mr. Judd. Well, Mr. Judd's won a Brownlow, but he hasn't won him a premiership. Maybe Jordan Bannister's the man. As an umpire, can he have an influence on Carlton? Gee, I tell you what, they need something. They haven't broken their duck yet, and God forbid, I hope it stays like that for the rest of the season, because us Pies, we don't hold any hope for the Blue Baggers at all, because they're the silver tails, and we're the people that are working class, and we really value what we've got. But in reality, what would the competition be without that little bit of rivalry? Good on you, Carlton. You hope Bannister does well for you, but anyway, good luck. You need it. You're like the man with the wheelbarrow. You got the job in front of you. Jordan Bannister was an in and out player with Carlton. Look, he played played some reasonable football. In the period of time when they were going through the transition from losing Bradley and Mackay and those types of players. But look, he's an ex-player for Carlton. He's played a number of games. He was certainly a senior player at times, and it's good to see ex-players join the transition into the umpiring ranks, as Mark Fraser did from Collingwood and Essendon years ago, and of course now I believe that Mark Fraser sits on the tribunal. So look, ex-players playing a part. They have an understanding of what's happening in the game, and in reality, it's only a benefit to the code itself, because they have an understanding of what players are going through, and they can read the game a little bit better. So in reality, it's a good thing, even if he is a blue bag. That brings us to the close of the first session for 2012 of AFL Wit and Wisdom. And I finish with the trademark Peter Lynch message. Go Pies! Yes!